Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good to see your smiling faces from up here again. Can you hear me okay? It's not uncommon to find a place in a movie or a TV show where some ugly duckling person gets a makeover or some change of circumstance. And suddenly, this person with the same actor goes from dull to shining. It's hard to believe that a change of clothes and new makeup can make someone suddenly stop traffic impressive. A great example is Drop Dead Diva. It's a TV show from the early teens. A highly successful fashion model dies and is accidentally put into the body of an overweight lawyer who's just been shot. The same actress plays the lawyer before she's shot and the model newly arrived in the body. At first, she isn't even in new clothes and makeup. She wakes up in a hospital bed in a hospital gown, and she still looks better. All that changed was the attitude that the actress played. She was suddenly confident, sexy. She didn't hold herself in on herself. She didn't cast her eyes down. Her face was expressive. The character didn't lose weight in the series, but she still came across as an attractive, even sexy woman. She wore clothes that fit. She bothered to style her hair. She walked into the room like a model, like she knew she looked good, like she was a person of value. And she did look good. When we talk about physical beauty, a lot of that can be actually quantified. While many elements of it may change with current fashion and culture, such as how thin or plump a woman should be, or if a man should be wearing a beard, many elements are unchanging and very consistent. The waist-hip ratio in a woman, for instance, or how much taller than a woman a man should be. Across cultures and time, some physical attributes clearly define beauty. There's no time and place where a woman with a 0.7 waist-hip ratio was generally considered unattractive, or no time or place where women were not generally attracted to men who were 10% taller than themselves. But it appears that these and some other physical attributes do not alone define beauty. Positive emotions, for instance, are universally considered attractive in both men and women. A smile always makes someone more desirable. But beauty is complex. And while there are attributes of attitude and movement that probably are universally desirable and hardwired, defining just what they are is difficult. That certain je ne sais quoi, that certain something. Marr could be the quintessential alluring woman, yet photographs of her do not show a stunning beauty, just an average woman. Anne Boleyn was said to be a mostly unattractive woman. Portraits of her, in fact, do not reflect the kind of beauty that one would associate with a woman that so attracted a king that he destroyed the entire religious structure of his nation just to marry her. All eyes and hair was reportedly used to describe her. While never described as beautiful, she was described as captivating, intelligent, interesting, compelling even. Henry VIII was so totally smitten, a king who could have had a woman of any beauty. Yet none of the descriptions of her really tell us what it was that made her so attractive. Cleopatra, likewise, was said to be less than a beauty, yet captivating, alluring, and desirable. And while words like captivating and alluring are used to describe her, they still do not tell us what it was that made her so attractive. Enough studying of film could probably tell you just what movements, poses, and expressions convey this. For instance, if you want to appear confident in a conversation, make it a point to blink less often. Studies have shown that we subconsciously perceive fast blinking as a sign of someone being unsure of themselves. But it isn't exactly the movements, poses, or expressions that are attractive, but rather the attitude that they convey. Anyone who's internet dated has probably run into the situation of being surprised at how the person looks when they meet them, even when the photographs they showed you were current and not doctored. This is because 50 to 90% of the information communicated between humans is nonverbal. Photographs do not accurately convey all of the personality expressed by the body language in the first personal encounter. We all know that the first impression is extremely important. People do tend to file that first impression in an extra large, heavily weighted file. Do we just concern ourselves with our clothes or hair when trying to make a first good impression? I think not. I think we make sure to stand up straight, to smile, or look serious, or look thoughtful, or look however we think is good for that encounter. We completely know that no matter how perfect our suit or makeup is, that coming across as uncertain or arrogant or needy or whatever can completely sink us. And if you subscribe to the belief that our self-view is reflected in how we look, that is, how we stand and move, our expressions, our reactions, then it's hardly a surprise that we all pay attention to those indications of self-view. It's a bit like getting letters of recommendations from a family member. While positive recommendations might be taken with a grain of salt, negative ones or refusal to give one from a close relative sends up all kinds of red flags. If those close to you won't stand up for you, you must have an issue. So we wonder about a person who doesn't think well of themselves. After all, you know your history better than anyone, and if you don't feel like there's something about you or anything that you've done to stand up straight for, then maybe we're not so sure ourselves. Of course, the easy place to go here would be to tell you all that if you want to be attractive, the first thing you need to do is value yourself. If you want to project that value to the world. But that's not so easy of an answer as it may sound on first pass. While plenty of self-help books might imply otherwise, actually having a sense of self-worth takes a lot more than looking in the mirror and affirming out loud that you have value. While not totally true, there's truth that a sense of value is a gift that is easier to give to others than it is to give to yourself. How many of us have had a real change in our self-view installed by one teacher or boss or friend who showed us in a real and tangible way that we had value? Value to them and the world at large. It's also something that we can take away from someone, usually thoughtlessly, showing someone also in a tangible and real way some judgmental truth about them that we convince ourselves it's to their benefit to actually understand. to tell you one of my favorite stories. It's called The 8-Cow Wife. I admit when I first read the story, I went at it a bit adversarially. I never have liked the idea of a bride price and the implication that a woman is property of her father and then sold to her husband. But a friend insisted that I had to read this story. Lucky for me, I did. And I found a beautiful, loving story. I noticed in this story that the author, Patricia McPeer, struggles a bit to describe what it was that made Sarita homely, and then just what it was that made her stunning. The tilt of her chin, the sparkle in her eyes, the shining in her beauty, these are all vague things. Not at all clear what it is about her that made her appealing. While Patricia tries and fails to describe what it was about Sarita that gave her the overall impression of a stunningly beautiful woman, the thing that actually tells us what was beautiful about her is Johnny's explanation of her self-view. By his reckoning, her lack of beauty was a reflection of her lack of self-worth, and her beauty now reflected an internal feeling of value. I think this lesson is a real story in our power to affect the people around us, and hopefully even tell us how we can choose to make the world more beautiful by striving to give the people we know the gift of self-value. To really think about just what it was that Johnny meant when he said he wanted an 8-cow wife. Here it is, as published in Woman's Day magazine in 1965. My trip to Kitawata Island in the Pacific was a memorable one. Although the island was beautiful and I had an enjoyable time, the thing I remember most about my trip was the fact Johnny Lingo gave 8 cows for his wife. I'm reminded of it every time I see a woman belittle her husband or a wife wither under her husband's scorn. I want to say to them, you should know why Johnny Lingo gave 8 cows for his wife. Johnny Lingo is known throughout the island for his skills, intelligence, and savvy. If you hire him as a guide, he will show you the best fishing spots and the best places to get pearls. Johnny is also one of the sharpest traders in the islands. He can get you the best possible deals. The people of Kinawata all speak very highly of Johnny Lingo. Yet, when they speak of him, they always smile just a little bit mockingly. A couple of days after my arrival to Kinawata, I went to the manager of the guest house to see who he thought would be a good fishing guide. Johnny Lingo, said the manager. He's the best around. When you go shopping, let him do the bargaining. Johnny knows how to make a deal. Johnny Lingo, quoted a boy nearby. The boy rocked with laughter as he said, yeah, Johnny Lingo can make a deal all right. What's going on? I demanded. Everyone tells me to get in touch with Johnny Lingo, and then they start laughing. Please let me in on the joke. Oh, the people like to laugh, the manager said, shrugging. Johnny's the brightest and strongest young man in the islands. He's also the richest for his age. But, I protested, if he's all that you say he is, why does everyone laugh at him behind his back? Well, there is one thing. 5 months ago at Fall Festival, Johnny came to Kitawata and found himself a wife. He gave her father 8 cows. I knew enough about island customs to be impressed. A dowry of 2 or 3 cows would net a fair wife. 4 or 5 cows, a very nice wife. Wow, I said, 8 cows. She must be a beauty that takes your breath away. She's not ugly, he conceded with a little smile. But calling her plain would definitely be a compliment. Sam Carew, her father, was afraid he wouldn't be able to marry her off. Instead of being stuck with her, he got 8 cows for her. Isn't that extraordinary? This price has never been paid before. Yet, you called Johnny's wife plain. I said plain would be a compliment. She was skinny. She walked with her shoulders hunched and her head ducked. She was scared of her own shadow. Well, I said, I guess there's no accounting for love. True enough, agreed the man. That's why all the villagers grin when they talk about Johnny. They get a special satisfaction from the fact that the sharpest trader in the islands got bested by dull old Sam Carew. But how? No one knows and everyone wonders. All of the cousins urged Sam to ask for 3 cows and hold out for 2 until he was sure Johnny would pay only 1. To their surprise, Johnny came to Sam Carew and said, "Father of Sarita, I offer you 8 cows for your daughter." 8 cows, I murmured. I'd like to meet this Johnny Lingo. I wanted fish and pearls, so the next afternoon I went to the island of Nurabandi. I asked directions to Johnny's house, and I noticed Johnny's neighbors were also amused at the mention of his name. When I met the slim, serious young man, I could see immediately why everyone respected his skills. However, this only reinforced my confusion over him. As we sat in his house, he asked me, "You come from Kitawata?" "Yes." "They speak of me on the island?" "Yes. They say you can provide me with anything I need. They say you're intelligent, resourceful, and the sharpest trader in the islands." He smiled gently. "My wife is from Kitawata." "Yes, I know. They speak of her." "A little." "What do they say?" "Why, just, the question caught me off balance. They told me you were married at festival time." "Nothing more?" The curve of his eyebrow told me he knew there had to be more. "They also say the marriage settlement was 8 cows." I paused. "They wonder why." "They ask that." His eyes lighted with pleasure. "Everyone in Kitawata knows about the 8 cows." I nodded. "And in Nurabandi, everyone knows it too?" His chest expanded with satisfaction. "Always and forever, when they speak of marriage settlements, it will be remembered that Johnny Lingo paid 8 cows for Sarita." So that's the answer, I thought. Vanity. Just then, Sarita entered the room to place flowers on the table. She stood still for a moment to smile at her husband and then left. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. The lift of her shoulders, the tilt of her chin, the sparkle in her eyes, all spelled self-confidence and pride. Not an arrogant or haughty pride, but a confident inner beauty that radiated in her every movement. I turned back to Johnny and found him looking at me. "You admire her," he murmured. She's gorgeous," I said. "Obviously, this is not the one everyone is talking about. She can't be the Sarita you married on Kitawata. There's only one Sarita. Perhaps she doesn't look the way you expected?" "She doesn't. I heard she was homely. They all make fun of you because you let yourself be cheated by Sam Carew." "You think 8 cows is too many?" A smile slid over his lips. "No, but how can she be so different from the way they described her?" Johnny said, "Think about how it must make a girl feel to know her husband paid a very low dowry for her. It must be insulting to her to know he places such little value on her. Think about how she must feel when the other women boast about the high prices their husbands paid for them. It must be embarrassing for her. I would not let this happen to my Sarita." "So you paid 8 cows just to make your wife happy?" "Well, of course I wanted Sarita to be happy, but there's more to it than that. You say she's different from what you expected. This is true. Many things can change a woman. There are things that happen on the inside and things that happen on the outside. However, the thing that matters most is how she views herself. In Kitawada, Sarita believed she was worth nothing. As a result, that's the value she projected. Now, she knows she is worth more than any other woman on the islands. It shows, doesn't it? Then I wanted to marry Sarita. She is the only woman I love. But I was close to understanding. But he finished softly, I wanted an 8-cow wife. Blessed be.